you're very connected with the hedge fund world. You talk to some of the biggest guys in that space. Do you see them moving into the crypto assets more as well, especially looking at the returns, etc. at the moment?
So on two levels. So I'm a macro guy. So macro guy, we look at multi-asset class world and the set of opportunities. That world has seen diminishing returns. Right now, in this very volatile world we're in, it's actually a very high return world for macro. But sooner or later, bond yields are all going to zero and there'll be no bonds to trade, right? Bonds have been the largest alpha generator for the entire macro hedge fund industry for the last 30 years. They're going to zero and they're not going to move again. We eventually will decouple from this world of debt and interest rates, but that may be indefinitely, like the Japanese. So macro returns have compressed over time. Yes, this year we've had, after suppressed volatility, we get hyper volatility. But what's interesting is the first guy who changed his mind was a guy called Dan Moorhead, who's been on RealVision a lot. So Dan was ex-Tiger, which was one of the biggest, most famous hedge funds in the world. Dan was a pure macro guy. He saw Bitcoin and he closed his hedge fund and said, nope, this is the future. And this was like 5 years ago. He's like, all expected future returns of all other asset classes combined, which is what macro is less than this one. I didn't understand that at first. Then another friend of mine, Mike Novogratz, another Goldman partner who had founded Fortress, huge hedge fund, macro guy, closed up after a bad year and said, you know what, crypto is bigger than all the expected returns of everything added together. Sure, he still trades a bit of macro because it's fun, but his whole bet is that. Followed by Mark Yusko, who a lot of people in Ireland know pretty well because he's always in the Cayman Islands. Followed by another friend of mine, Dan Tapiera, John Burbank, another famous investor, Passport Capital, a real genius. He basically closed up his hedge fund, turned it into a family office, and dedicated his assets to crypto. Alan Howard from Brevin Howard, the biggest hedge fund firm in Europe for a long time. Alan has a crypto team working on his private capital and some of the capital of the fund. So many of these guys have just gone, this is, and these are really, really amazing people. And people like Lewis Bacon at More Capital, he's got a team. Paul Tudor Jones has just come into the space. They've all realized the expected future return of this thing is the biggest of anything they've ever seen in their lives, and it's worth dedicating their life to. Okay, that's extraordinary. These are really, really smart, experienced people. But then, you know, a lot of them read my research at Global Macro Investor, and I've been writing a lot about Bitcoin recently because I'm, you know, phenomenally bullish against the backdrop you and I just talked about, you know, a very uncertain world with lots of excess printing of capital. What's interesting is all the rest of the hedge fund guys, the CIOs and founders, are all hitting me up saying, okay, so where do I start? Which account do I open? How do I do it? Where do I store it? So I can see it firsthand that it's happening. And Paul Tudor Jones was the big headline one from this year, because Paul is and I've known him for my whole career, he trades liquid things, futures, things he understands, nothing complicated. And he's like, okay, Bitcoin's expected return is higher than anything else. So I've now got an allocation to Bitcoin, which was basically the green flag for everybody to get involved. If Paul Tudor Jones is in it, we're all doing it. So hedge funds are setting up entities to trade it. They're doing it themselves. There is more coming. And there are hedge funds in the space who are solely trading digital assets, which I know a whole ton of those. And we haven't even started what the digital assets are that we're going to have. Right now, we just know a few of the currencies and a few of the tokens. But we haven't even started what the opportunity is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I mean, we've seen similar things, seeing lots of very interesting players coming into the space.